must run from 20 to 30 years. The single off-taker, who is KPLC, is mandated by law through the agreements to take or pay for the capacity of the power plant. Madam Speaker, when I say take or pay, it means whether we take, we have to pay. If we don't take, we still have to pay. Madam Speaker, my further research moved me to realize the prices that we are getting from KenGen and from the IPPs. This was a shocker to learn that at KenGen, we buy 1 unit of electricity at 5 shillings and 30 cents. The IPPs, on the other hand, and especially the thermal producing ones, are selling to us a unit of electricity at Kenya shillings 195 per unit. This, Madam Speaker, answers the cost of our electricity bills. Madam Speaker, let me further explain about the fixed agreements that Kenya Power and Lighting Company has with the IPPs. KPLC has to buy a fixed amount of power from these IPPs. These contracts often have fixed costs, not affected by demand or the market. This forces KPLC to pay for power.
Order members, Honourable Member for Mathioya, you do not just cross the floor. You know the standing orders.
This, Madam Speaker, forces KPLC to pay for energy that it does not need, which contributes further to the consumer paying for higher electricity bills. Madam Speaker, it is important to note that the dominance of IPPs has equally affected us because that limits competition. Number 2, it also makes it difficult for KPLC to negotiate prices. Number 3, lack of competition also gives them the higher bargaining power, and we have to go by their terms, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, we also have to speak of a regulator whom we call EPRA, the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, which ensures tariffs reflect the cost of providing electricity to the consumer. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, this is not the case because EPRA also seems to be moved by the political situation in the country and eventually does not do as expected. Honourable Speaker, it's in this precedence that we find KPLC transferring the high cost of electricity to the consumers, and in turn, everybody has to pay a very high electricity bill. Honourable Speaker, for electricity bills to come down in this country, it is in my humble opinion that we need to create a negotiation commission. A commission that will competitively procure and negotiate with these power producing companies on behalf of KPLC and change the IPP agreement from take or pay to take and pay, meaning we need to only pay for what we take. The second thing, Madam Speaker, we must lower the acceptable system losses at KPLC, and somebody has to take responsibility for anything that is lost above the acceptable loss given by the country. Madam Speaker, this will reduce inefficiencies at KPLC, and it's also going to make sure we reduce on the losses at KPLC. Madam Speaker, my third point would be we need to allow KETRACO to wholly handle transmission and leave KPLC to handle distribution, marketing, as well as billing. Madam Speaker, we need to create an IPP office which will be self-sustaining. And this office will have its stakeholders, will be the engineers, will be the developers, will be the investors, will be the lenders, will be the legal minds, and who can decide on the lowest cost, monitor output, oversight the fidelity of all these agreements, and eventually the consumer is going to get a better deal for what they offer, from what KPLC will be offering. Madam Speaker, I think we have also come of age as a country to realize what global warming is causing us. Of course, thermal production of electricity is a high contributor to that. Madam Speaker, we need to reduce the thermal production of electricity and make it to be on standby and not our mainstream source of energy production. Madam Speaker, procuring cheaper and renewable energy is also going to be a positive effect to the consumer, and it's going to reflect on the bill. Honourable Speaker, every Kenyan is yearning for a country that we can make better for ourselves and even future generations. But Madam Speaker, for Kenya to become a globally competitive country, Kenya Power must lower the cost of electricity. Madam Speaker, for our country to become an industrial hub and not just the gateway to Africa, Kenya Power must lower the cost of electricity. Madam Speaker, for our country to become a middle-income country by the year 2030, Kenya Power must lower the cost of electricity. Madam Speaker, for our food prices to come down, Kenya Power must lower the cost of electricity. Madam Speaker, for His Excellency the President and our Kenya Kwanza government to achieve our promise on employment for young people, Kenya Power must lower the cost of electricity. Madam Speaker, for the cost of production to come down, Kenya Power has to lower the cost of electricity. And finally, Madam Speaker, for us to make ease of doing business better in this country, Kenya Power has to lower the cost of electricity. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move and request Honorable Karoli Omondi to second. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.